and welcome to This Sustainable Life Untethered, the place where we explore mind, body, and nature and all the things that hold us back from enjoying them. I am your host, Alison, and today we have invited Neil back onto the podcast for part 2 of Neil, who was on originally episode 3, Obese to Buff Beast, where he talked about his weight loss transformation, losing almost 30 kilos, and also transforming his identity and food philosophy. So I recommend you check that episode out if you haven't yet listened to it. So this time we catch up with Neil to find out what happened with regards to his personal challenge that he set around using reusable coffee cups. And also, because I live with Neil, he's my partner, I know that he is going through another phase of transformation at the moment around his career. And so we have a bit of a chat about that as well, and some of the difficulties and excitements and diving into the great unknown of this. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. It's part 2 with Neil. So I am really excited to welcome back Neil Mclatchie onto the podcast. Neil was with us on episode 3, where he talked about his personal transformation with regards to losing weight. Highly, highly recommend you check that episode out. It was really interesting to hear Neil's personal, mental, physical, spiritual transformation. And he also set a challenge as well. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Neil, can you remind everyone of your personal challenge, please?
Yes, I signed up to take along a cup with me, a reusable cup, anytime I went to Starbucks or a coffee shop to get some coffee. And the second part of the challenge was not to get the coffee if I didn't have a cup.
That's right. And you did that. You committed to that for 1 month. And I believe it's been a month now. So I'm dying to find out what happened. Tell me, how did it go?
Well, it was very much a mixed bag in terms of success. A couple of times I was in town and I said yes to a coffee or got a coffee. And as I was walking out of it, realized, hang on, whatever happens, don't Alison know about this. I'm joking. But you know, it was one of those things where I remember being in town and my friend offered me to go get me a coffee, and I was like, yeah, please. And when she was inside, I was like, damn it, I should have said no. But it was so natural and instinctive to say, yeah, that'd be great, you know. So I started off difficult. I made a promise that I wouldn't lie to you, so I always came and faced up to that and made sure that I said, I had a coffee today and didn't have a cup. But then there was a brief period where I felt proud of myself because I actually did manage to take along. I actually started carrying around with me an extra cup. I felt a little bit disappointed that Costa's wouldn't accept the cup because of the whole COVID situation. Starbucks let you put it in another cup, and then they don't touch your cup; they just hold the other cup that it's in. And Starbucks were happy for me to use it, but Costa's didn't. And in those situations, I felt well, it only happened once. Costa's only told me one time that they couldn't do it, and then I didn't go back to Costa's for the rest of the month. But I felt it would have been very rude of me and very un-British for me to have said, you don't accept reusable cups, and walk out at that point. So I didn't. I just kind of took the cup and just apologized to Mother Nature. But then my wonderful girlfriend and I have been on a bit of a homemade coffee kick this month. I sometimes follow a guy called Remington James, who gives lots of like healthy bodybuilding type recipes or alternative foods. And one of the suggestions that he had was that we make a Starbucks coffee that is high in protein and low in sugar and all that stuff. So we've been experimenting with that this week. So in fact, my coffee cup usage has gone right down, because I think for the last 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, I've only really drank coffee that I've made. You know, we put some protein powder in there, we put some almond milk, we put some ice. Sometimes we put some. What else we put in it?
We got some flavors.
Some flavor drip things
like that.
Eggnog flavor, yeah. And we just put it in the Vitamix and blend it up, and it's this delicious, frothy, hot chocolate niceness. So yeah, in the last half of the month, I've definitely cut down on my use of coffee cups as planned. but not the way that I had planned.
And do you think that the transition towards having coffee more indoors and in our house is partly as a result of the challenge and your intention, or do you think it would have happened anyway?
I think it's a happy coincidence. I think it's. I don't think. I think the fact that the coffee tastes so nice, and the fact that it also means that I have cut down my usage of cups. I think it's just a cherry on the cake. It's just an nice extra. I think I would have done it anyway, just because I actually prefer the drinks I'm making at home to the drinks I'm getting from town.
Wow, well, that's like a win-win situation then, really, isn't it, in terms of
Well,
taste?
actually, I say prefer.
Money.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry for interrupting. I say prefer. This YouTuber that I follow, Greg Doucette, talks about it has to be good enough. And I would say maybe the Starbucks Frappuccino with all the cream and chocolatey goodness and everything else. Maybe if that's a 10 out of 10, my drinks might be 8 out of 10. But the fact that they're so much cheaper, so much healthier, and don't have any kind of don't involve the use of non-recyclable cups makes them good enough. So I'm plenty happy just drinking them at home, not going to town and using cups.
Cool. And I'm curious about the emotions that you might have experienced in the process. So what was your emotional journey before you started the challenge, during, and where are you at now with regards to how you feel about it?
The challenge itself started off with me not really caring too much about it when I set it. I mean, I was committed to it, but it didn't mean that much to me. It was just going to be a challenge that I did for a month. I definitely felt guilty. It definitely felt, I don't know if it's guilt or shame, but that moment where you realize that I'm supposed to have that, I'm not supposed to do this, so it's too late now. But and it wasn't because I was just ignoring the rules. It was always after. It was always when it's too late to then take it back. I'd already drank the coffee, or I'm drinking it now, or so that surprised me. That I actually did feel guilty. Once I realized it, I couldn't just ignore it and dismiss it so easily. During the challenge, you and I have watched a few documentaries, and I know you've just done a recent podcast on it, that you can't unknow stuff now. So as we watched those podcasts, as I was doing the challenge, an awareness of sustainability issues, I became more developed anyway. So I think that kind of helped me stick to the challenge, or take the challenge more seriously, just because I realized that actually there are things that we should be doing. It is our responsibility. And we don't have to go OTT with it, but we can just change our behavior in ways that it's not painful to change.
Absolutely. And then what about, so you said you felt guilty, a little bit of guilt if you forgot to bring the cup and you realized afterwards. How did you feel when you did bring the cup?
I felt good. I felt, I felt proud. I felt, I just felt good, I guess. I didn't feel like, it wasn't ecstatic. It wasn't like winning the Nobel Prize. I wasn't walking up to strangers in the street and shaking their hands and announcing what I just did.
You were just high-fiving everyone in the coffee shop. Guess what I did? Which, by the way, is what I do basically when I remember to bring a bag with me when we go shopping. I'm like, yes, I remembered. Boom.
You know what my biggest issue is? It's and I'd love to have a website that has all this maths on it. It's not knowing. So I was having coffee with a colleague, and she bought me a metal reusable cup. And I have no idea how many paper reusable cups I could use before it's worth that one metal extra insulated reusable cup. Like how many? I just don't know the maths. I remember once I met someone who was using a metal straw, and I was like, how many metal straws or how many plastic straws is this metal straw worth in terms of its impact on the planet? Because I assume, and I might be wrong, that metal requires more energy and more damage to the environment than one plastic straw does. But that is purely my guess. I have no idea, and I would like to know, of all the alternatives and options on the table, what is it? If you're likely to use less than 100,000 straws in your lifetime, maybe use a plastic straw. I mean, that's probably not the case. But if you're likely to use, am I likely to use 1,000 straws in my life? Probably not. So, if I use less than 1,000 straws, is one metal straw worth 1,000 plastic straws? I would love to have that kind of information to hand when I'm making these decisions.
Yeah, I guess we're saying like you need to almost need to spend a bit of time doing research to find out like what is actually the best thing, because it's not intuitive. I guess that's the point you're trying to make. It's not necessarily you think you might be doing the right thing, but actually sometimes you may be misled, misguided, and it's just we don't know it, do we? Unless you spend time looking at it, you just don't know.
But I think that documentary, maybe we should give the resource. I don't know what it's called. That the guy from the cottage, River Cottage.
Oh, Hugh Fearnley Whittingstall.
What's that documentary called?
It was on BBC iPlayer, and it was just about plastics. Oh, I can't remember. I'll have to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It'd be cool if you could put it in show notes. Yeah, because that kind of highlighted just how little we know. Like you and I just thought that if we put it in the recycling, at least that stuff's getting recycled and we're doing our bit. Then you find out that it's traveling halfway around the world and just being dumped in somebody else's backyard. And it's just that kind of information does mean you have to live with it. Even if you accept it, it doesn't bother you. You have to be the kind of person that it won't bother. And I think you and I, it's kind of made us realize, well, if there's things that we can do to avoid that, we would rather avoid it. If we can reduce the number of cups we're sending over to Malaysia, I think it's beneficial and it doesn't hurt anyone. And that's the key detail. It literally doesn't hurt me to take a reusable cup or to make my coffee at home.
Yeah, it's just the change in habit, isn't it? And having a bit more information and a bit more knowledge maybe makes that change in habit easier to do, or at least it sounds like a bit like that's been your experience.
Yeah, I intend to keep the challenge going. I intend to try. I mean, if I do get coffee in town on those rare occasions now, I hope I'll always have a cup on me.
Yay! And do you think that you might try anything else, like maybe take another step and do something additional, or are you just happy with exploring that for now?
I mean, I'm definitely taking additional steps. As you know, Alison, I started washing the plastics when I put them in the recycling bin. Didn't know that you had to clean them out proper. I just thought if I left them in the recycling box, our dog Louis would give them a little bit of a licking, which he tries to do when we're not looking. And yeah, I thought that was enough. So I'm definitely aware that I'm willing to make more of a commitment to the general cause of reducing plastics and just reducing our impact on the environment. That doesn't mean I'm going to be reducing my wastage down to zero or whatever the case might be in any time in the near future. But I just think being deliberate, also just sharing the cause a little bit, just letting people know.
And have you been doing that? So that was another question I was going to ask. Obviously, I can give my perspective on the challenge, but how has it affected anyone else, or have you talked about it with anyone else?
Yeah, I've talked about it to the couple of friends that I've gone to town with. One of my friends said, "Oh, it seems so impossible. What's the point?" Or it seems like you just make a drop in the ocean. What's the point? And that does seem to be a common response to this. Now, another one, a different friend said, if large companies just change their behavior by a tiny fraction, they could do more good than the entire country that decides to put, all these kind of facts that essentially just result in people not doing things. And I think my response to that now is, that's all true. You might be making no impact whatsoever, but if you can change your behavior in a way that doesn't hurt someone, doesn't hurt you, it doesn't even involve you going without, then why wouldn't you? Like, it just seems a cop out to say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that because it won't make a difference." It doesn't make a difference either way, so why don't you do it?
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with that logic. If it's no extra effort, really, if it doesn't hurt you, like you say, it's not painful. And
it's aligned with your values. That's the point of this task. Like, true, you might not make any difference, but at least you're behaving in a way that's aligned with your values. So given the choice, it makes no difference, but it also causes you no suffering or pain. Why not behave in the way that aligns with your values? I think that's pretty much where I'm at the moment with this.
That's really cool. I'm really excited to hear it. And obviously I live with you, if the listeners haven't guessed. So I've seen your journey as well, which has been really nice. And I guess I just wanted to point out one one bit which we wouldn't have had this experience had, you know, we not had this conversation and you embarked on the challenge, which was one time you were looking to meet your friend in town with the intention of going for a coffee, and you were running late. Not because of me this time, may I add, but because of you.
I usually am running late because of us.
Yeah.
All my friends think I'm late, but they don't know it's because of you. I just spent all my life in the waiting zone.
Anyway, you were running late and you were like, Alison, where are the reusable cups? I'm gonna meet, you know, so and so in town. I need to find the cups. And it was really nice for me to see you sticking with your values and trying to find those reusable cups that I believe were in the dishwasher. You need
Do you know what's really funny about that story is
what
it also betrays, like, so I've just mentioned the waiting zone, which is, I swear, I spend half my life just waiting mindlessly by the door, waiting for Alison. Why? She knows we're leaving 10 minutes ago. Why are we still waiting? That's one game that you and I play. The other game is the game of where has Alison put it, which is in the kitchen. I just spend, when I'm not in the waiting zone, I feel like I'm in the kitchen, just trying to guess the mind of Alison. This morning, I asked you, I said, where are the scales? And you pointed over to where they've never been before and said it as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. They've never been put there. And you're like, I've moved them over there. I feel like my life is just spent waiting and finding, searching for. Anyway, so it's a bit off topic.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your feedback. So your point is that maybe at that point it did give you a little bit of pain, or, you know, a little bit of negativity to try and find the cup and wash it. And even though you were running late, you did that rather than just be like, oh, sod it, I'll just go and get the cup. And that was really nice for me to see, and like exciting for our sustainability journey, because you taking on the challenge has made me obviously more conscious as well about my habits and bringing cups, etc. So yeah, it's been,
there is definitely a social accountability thing going on. I would highly encourage, if you know, the biggest impact you've had is probably by not by any actual challenge that you've taken up, or any actual action that you've done, but just getting me involved, because you've doubled your impact just by having me involved, you know. So that is, I don't want to turn into like a vegans, you know, vegans are notorious for being called out for being, or CrossFitters, you know, for, you know, you introduce themselves as, hi, I'm Neil, I do CrossFit, or hi, I'm Neil, I'm a vegan. But there is something to be said about that social component to behavioral change, that if you know, you can double the impact if you just get somebody else equally on board as you.
Absolutely. And thus is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast and having this conversation. You hit the nail on the head there, Neil. Brill. So that was really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I guess last time we talked about something that was a huge transformation for you with regards to your weight and losing weight, and the journey that you went on. Well, I know that you are also experiencing, or in the midst of, another huge transformation. And I thought it might be interesting for listeners just if we could have a chat about that. So you are a lecturer at the university. And for those of you who don't know, I guess you have been in education, higher education, training, etc. for a while in order to become a lecturer, to get your PhD, etc. And that's all that you've done for the last, since university. And although the UK system doesn't have tenure as such, I believe that pretty much once you have a job as a lecturer or in the university as an academic, you kind of have a job for life. And I know that you have now handed in your notice rather excitingly, because you believe that there are other opportunities that you want to follow, want to pursue. And so I am really excited for this new kind of chapter for you, and curious as to what are the circumstances that led you up to leaving this job that's all you've done, all you've known, all you've trained for.
Good question. So I think the reason why I wanted to talk about it on the podcast is because I have, I think a lot of other people might be in a similar situation or feeling the same kind of feelings and thinking the same kind of thoughts as I've been feeling. Um, I'm essentially leaving a job that I thought I always wanted, and leaving a job that I thought I would always have. I thought I would, ever since before I went to university, I met this professor, psychology professor, and he was my mixed martial arts instructor as well. And he basically made the job look awesome and super cool. And I decided to study psychology at that university where he worked. And then I just did my master's. And I always thought I'd have some time out somewhere along the way and do some traveling. But I went straight from my BSc to my master's, and straight from my master's to my PhD. And then before you know it, from my PhD, I managed to get a lectureship straight out of my PhD. And I just always assumed that this was the job I wanted. But I realized over the last few years, something weird had happened where I kept that belief. That belief was in my head still. This is the job I love. I'm so lucky to have it. This is what I like to do. And then the everyday reality seemed to differ from that. So the example I give is, I've always been kind of very much a research-led person. So, all the colleagues that I hang out with and all the mentors and stuff, that's all very focused on getting research done. And what I realized is I was telling myself, it's all about the research. I love that I get to do research. And then I actually wasn't in love with doing research anymore. When I paused the other day and thought, or the other month now, and thought, what about research do I actually love? Because it's got to a point now where every research project on my table, I was kind of like, I just can't wait to get rid of that. I can't wait to be done with that. And then when a new research project comes on my table, it's even more hassle. I'm like, I've got to get that sorted, get ethics for that. I've got to get the participant recruitment going. It had got to the stage where doing the research, which is the component of the job that I always thought I enjoyed, and why a lot of lecturers, I don't know how it works elsewhere in the world, but lots of lecturers put up with the teaching that they have to do and the admin that they have to do. Even if they enjoy it, they might enjoy it, whilst they do it, but it's not their calling. It's not why they do the job. The reason a lot of people, and there's different reasons, but the reason why a lot of people, especially in my circle, do the job is because of the love of research. And when it kind of dawned on me that I don't have this love of research anymore, I'm almost treating research sort of how I treat teaching, or an admin role. Okay, I have to do this job. Let's get it done. Let's get that done with, and then it's out there, and I can move on. And when I realized that my love of research had kind of disappeared, I realized it was time to, find something else. All the time I'm doing something that I'm not finding extremely fulfilling. I'm basically wasting my time, is how it felt. And lots of things happened at the same time. I was stuck in the house with you for 150 days or so during lockdown.
Oh, torture.
Torture. And at one point we had our friend come stay with us. Remember, between lockdowns, he just came and stayed. And it occurred to me that, one of the reasons why, if you ask an academic, or I've asked this question to several colleagues of mine, what is good about this job? And the answers you get are, you get to wear your own clothes. I'm not too fussed about that. You get to work where and when you want. We have flexible hours, so you don't have to be 9 to 5. And over the last few years, it kind of dawned on me that that's almost I almost was craving for a 9 to 5. Seeing you work 9 to 5, and at 5 o'clock alarm hits, you're off. You do what you want. You have no, extra business. When you go on holiday, you just hand over. You don't have to work. You don't have, nothing's waiting for you when you get back. That really struck home the last time we went on holiday, and you were like, oh, the project finishes when I'm away, so I'm done with it now. So I kind of started to realize that even though it sounds like a freeing thing, you get to work whenever you want, it actually means you have to work all the time. There's no off out, there's no off switch. And the final thing that people said when I asked them was they like the job because you get to do what you want. And more when I look at my timetable, I'm not the admin. Most academics don't appreciate the admin. I've been student experience officer, which is in the department, which is involved with the National Student Survey and making sure that students have a good time, which is it's a nice job. I'm not saying it's not a valuable job. It's just not what my calling was. I just didn't take the job to be a student experience officer. Ditto with teaching. Teaching was a big part of why I was excited about lecturing. But after a couple of years, you kind of find your niche, you find your groove, and it's not the main driver of the job. As I say, most people do it because they like research. And I was working out a couple of months ago, and it just occurred to me, like, if I don't enjoy the research, why am I still telling myself that it makes the other two things worthwhile? The research itself has become as much a job to me as a teaching admin. And so that's what I realized. The 3 reasons that people give, that my colleagues all gave, as to why this is a good job, I no longer agree with. And sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a bit here. But the point I made about you being locked down as well was seeing you finish at 9 till 5, but you enjoy your job. Our friend who came and stayed with us for a few weeks, he doesn't have a job. I mean, you in your job help people. I don't know how much information you want to say. You work in the NHS, but you help people. At one way or another, you can point to people and you can say, I've helped someone, I've improved their lives in some way. Our friend who came and stayed with us doesn't have that. I went to school with him. He never dreamt of being, I don't know what he does. He's some kind of Google website analyst or something. It's not a Google, but something to do with data analytics for a major company. He never dreamt of doing that when when we went to school together. But you can tell he enjoys it. It's something that he appreciates and gets into and enjoys. So this idea that you have to be an academic in order to do something that you enjoy doing, I think is overstated within academia. Even within academia, if you ask me when I was at school, one of the things I've done research and published papers on, and people come to me and ask for my help with, is Bayesian statistics. If you said to me when I was 19, 20, you're going to be an expert in Bayesian statistics, that was not my dream. I would have said, no, thank you, I'll go this way. And I'm not saying that I don't enjoy Bayesian statistics or statistics in general. I'm just saying that I think academics tend to underestimate how things can become interesting over time. You never dreamt of having your job when you were a child, and yet your job gives you a lot of meaning. Our friend never dreamt of being a data analytics for a major company, whatever he does, but I could see he really enjoys his job. And out of everyone, I seem to be the least enthused about my job. And that's, again, just another thing that happened around the time where I decided maybe it's time I start looking outside and asking, what else can I do that I will find more fulfilling or more interesting?
Wow. So it sounds like it was a kind of slow realization over time that something that you thought made you happy, made you fulfilled, gave you meaning, that you enjoyed, no longer did those things. And then, yeah.
That's true. So that is true. The weird thing is, the job's been fine. Like, I'm really worried that by talking about this like this, people might overestimate just how, they might think I'm miserable in a job. One of the reasons why I decided I have to do something is because I realized how long I've been thinking these thoughts for. I've been, one of the conversations that I had with someone about what's so good about the job was at an open day, when we have applicants come visit the university. Obviously, there weren't any applicants around at the time. And I realized that was 3 or 4 years ago. That's how long these thoughts and kind of, is this the job for me? Is this the job I thought it was? Is this the job I want to spend until I'm 65 doing? Was 3 or 4 years ago. And but the reason why I haven't just left and stayed so long is because I do feel fairly happy with the job. It's not a painful job. There's nothing there forcing me to go out. It's a kind of job that I look back and be like, wow, it's been 8 years. 8 years I've done this job for now. And it's because I can just do it. I'm in quite a good place within the department. I get on with my colleagues. I feel like the department respects me and I respect my colleagues. I'm in a good place with the teaching. My research is actually going really well. In fact, I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm able to leave. If I perceive myself as failing, I don't think, maybe I'm not getting in academia. One of the main measures of success is how many publications you have. And I'm not doing exceptionally well, but I'm doing okay. And if I wasn't doing okay, if I didn't have 3 to 4 papers coming out every year, I would feel like maybe I'm running away, or maybe I failed, and maybe I wouldn't be happy. The fact that I think I can look around and think, in terms of teaching, I've made a good contribution. In terms of research, I've made a good contribution. Admin, I know I've done things behind the scenes that I know I'm proud of, and I think I've helped the university. So I think I'm in a good place now where I'm thinking, I don't just want to be on autopilot and just be happy with the job and just, you know, end up being 65 and thinking, oh, I'm suddenly 65 and this is all I've ever done. So yeah, I just want to make it clear that I'm not miserable. The job itself is, you know, it's a nice job, and that's actually made it more of a thing to have to leave. It's made it more of a big deal for me.
So like there's a tension, I guess, between something that's in your comfort zone, and you use the word, you know, my calling. So that tension between like I'm comfortable, but also it's not quite my calling. It's not quite, I think, what I want or what excites me.
I think you've said a couple of times over the years, you know, the phrase "progress lies at the end of your comfort zone." And when you said that, I kind of, a few times I remember thinking, well, I can't imagine leaving my comfort zone. Like the way my life is set up, I have you know, as a lecturer essentially, I can't imagine any situation, circumstance, or anything that would result with me leaving that. So it almost felt like like I had to accept I'm staying put in this comfort zone. There's just no what situation could possibly arise that I would ever be forced to leave. And it was realizing that, you know, and of course we have the whole memento mori thing that you and I both are fans of. I think it's a Daily Stoic that got us turned into that. But this idea that you do only live once. Part of this whole process, by the way, has been basically realizing I need to embody my philosophy a little bit. You know, like it's easy to say memento mori, and it's easy to have a conversation with a friend who's thinking about leaving a job and say, memento mori, you only live once. Remember, you will die. You know, really focus on that. Let that influence your decisions. Meanwhile, you're on autopilot, staying in your comfort zone, basically attached, you know, committed to staying in the job because it's fairly good money and fairly happy and fairly good at in every way. But you know that you're not seeking things that make you happy as a result of being in that commitment, that job. So yeah, part of why I decided now is because I want to embody my philosophy. I want to, if I believe that you only live once, which I do, then I should make the most of it and take risks to make those years that I have as good as possible.
And I wonder if like COVID and the way that work has changed, and the fact that it has kind of messed up all of our comfort zones a little bit. I wonder if that's also been perhaps like good timing, because, you know, lots of people say they want to be able to work from home or work remotely. And now it feels like actually there are a lot more jobs where you could do that. The workplace has really expanded and people's minds have expanded as to how we could work. So I wonder if that's also kind of fortuitous for you at this time.
Yeah, no, I hope so. I think I remember when I was coaching some people a couple of years ago, because I did this executive coaching qualification, and one of the coachees really just wanted a remote working job, a job that she could work from at home. And it really it blows my mind now to think that so many jobs have transitioned to remote working. You know, so that's certainly something. I'm not desperate to work remotely. I mean, one of the biggest problems and issues that I have with leaving my job is I haven't got anything lined up yet. I have some ideas that I'd like to do, and executive coaching in general is definitely like one of the things that I've done over the last couple of years that I've really enjoyed. I've got pretty good feedback from people, and that would definitely be something I'm interested in. But yeah, I don't know what's next, you know. And some of the best advice I've received from a mentor of mine was, you should really have a job lined up before you leave a job, you know. And I don't, and that might separate me from what people, you know, listeners might be willing to do. Understandably, I'm in a lucky situation, I guess, and I in fact, it is definitely lucky that I can give up my job. I've got a partner that has a full-time job. And earns reasonably good money, that we do have some savings. In some way, I have a 6-month, in some way it's lucky as well that I have a 6-month notice period, because that gives me 6 months of, you know, full pay in order to start looking for other jobs and start getting those qualifications that I might need and whatnot. So that's the only thing that if I were to encourage someone to do what I'm doing, I would say maybe look around for jobs. The problem with academia is though that you do have that 6-month notice period. No job, if I apply for a job now, it's very, very unlikely that they're going to say, we like you so much, we're willing to wait the next 5 months for you. So there is that issue, which is why, when I was deciding whether or not to give up my job without having another job lined up, that was one of the main reasons I decided to go ahead, just because with the required notice period, it's going to be really difficult to have another job lined up for when I leave.
Yeah, I must admit, it feels very like we're diving into the deep end, but also I think I am really excited for you, for us. It will, if we go down to one salary for a bit, it will certainly take us out of our comfort zone, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And actually, I kind of welcome it. Again, is it one of the Stoic philosophies? I think I heard it from Tim Ferriss or whatever, and he says, every now and then just eat beans from a tin and lentils, and you'll see like not having enough is not so bad. Like it's okay. You'll handle it. So I'm curious as to having that experience and it being self-imposed on us.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, I've said to you before that I came from a really poor house. My mum was unemployed, single parent. Even if it wasn't as bad, even if it wasn't that bad, it always felt really bad. It always felt like, I can remember conversations with my auntie telling her, we're probably going to have to move out because we haven't paid the mortgage this month or for a couple of months, and we've got no money, we're overdrawn. All this, I just remember constantly being in the state of having no money, constantly thinking we're going to lose the house, all this stuff. So I've had to deal with that as well, because having 10 years of, I would say 10 years including my PhD, where you get paid for it. You don't get paid a lot, but you get paid what feels like a decent amount of money for the time. Going from that comfort and turning back into the potential that we're going to have to go without again, I think it's worth it. I have to say, it's nice having you as a coach sometimes. There was a one morning in particular when I after I handed in my resignation, and the high of what's next and the future and you're living your philosophy and all this stuff had worn off, and I woke up and the blanket felt so heavy. And it really was the blanket. I just could not make myself get motivated to get up. I was just thinking about my pension. Academics, one thing you can say about academia is that it generally has a good pension. And I was just, for some reason, I was just thinking the pension, when I'm 60 and I'm 65, whatever, and I'm having to work, stack shelves still because I gave up the job and I never got anything better and all this stuff. And I remember you just coming in, and I mentioned a few things, I mentioned it to you a little bit, and you were just like, nope, you're going to do brilliant. Nope, you can do this. Remember, you weren't happy. Remember, there's a reason that you decided to do this. And just having a positive influence like that was very helpful. Don't get me wrong, I still have moments where I'm like yesterday was the first time I sat down and opened my CV. And that felt tremendously nerve-wracking to be, having to switch from the academic CV, which is emphasizing the number of publications or where they're published, and how much funding you have, to the real world, outside of academia, that don't care about that. And then the advice I've seen to be getting is to focus more on skills rather than, academic publications or whatever. But yeah, there's still moments of it, but it's just about reminding yourself you do only live once. You weren't happy. You spent at least 5 years always thinking about the feeling, at least, that there's something more out there, that you should be doing something different, that this will, even though you enjoy this job, is that all you want to do with your life? And just reminding yourself that the answer was clearly no, so.
And I think having a bit of trust in yourself as well, your skills, your experiences led you to where you are now, which is a really good position. And you can use those same skills and experience to get you to another place. And indeed, you can always get new skills and get more experience. So, I wholeheartedly believe that sometimes we need a bit more motivation, and you've definitely kickstarted the motivation. But I think, with the motivation, with the support, with the strategy, we can absolutely, do it.
Yeah. I think that was another thing I was thinking as well. Like, you know, when you talk about, oh, I just done my PhD and I just got a PhD, and people congratulate you, and then realizing that you can, and then you get a lectureship, or you tell people you're a lecturer, and people congratulate you. I was realizing that it was the idea that my biggest accomplishments all came before the age of 26. You know, I'm 33 now, and the idea that the landmark accomplishments had all come at the age of 26 or earlier kind of was like, it kind of sat well with the lazy person in front of me, you know, that I can just rest my laurels now, and I can just, you know, I was the guy that went and wanted to become a lecturer and became a lecturer by the age of 26 and all this stuff. That's part of my identity, but I also didn't like the fact that I could be lazy, that, you know, what have I done, what huge accomplishment have I done in the last 6 years and 8 years? And the answer is probably nothing that compares. You know, I mean, there are things I'm really proud of. Our relationship. I love my dog Louis, that, you know, who's 4. I love the house that we built, all that stuff. And I've met goals, you know, my weightlifting goals, my weight loss goals, and whatnot. But I'm not really happy with the idea that the life-defining, or one of the, you know, the last life-defining event occurred when I was 26. You know, surely there's more to come, and there's big things I can achieve in the future. We're going to see. We're definitely going to find out.
I would love to keep this conversation going with you, with our listeners, and check in and find out what's happening and what your journey is and what you're learning. And in the previous discussion, you talked about how your identity changed as well, and your knowledge. So it'd be fascinating to live with you and see it, and then, you know, reflect that back to our listeners as well. So last question then. Is there anything that particularly surprised you, or any lessons that you would share with others who might be thinking that they are equally looking to move more towards their calling and less out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, even though I'm doing it without having a job lined up, so it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is still a calculated decision. It's still thinking, you know, every instinct in me says don't do it, and so it's taken a lot of deliberate thought and conscious, you know, thinking about it to realize that actually I'm in a better position. It's not like when my dad got made redundant and was without a job, you know, and he had no other qualifications, and he had a young daughter still to feed. I was an adult by then, but he was a young daughter, and, you know, had to really react to it in the moment in order to avoid going hungry or whatever. You know, I have a partner, a stable relationship. She earns money. I have qualifications. I think of myself as fairly competent and able. So I have the motivation and drive. And we have some savings, so we can go a little while without, you know, on your salary. Although that's obviously not the plan. So yeah, it'd be not to just jump into it, to really think about it and ask yourself, you know, if you're going to give this up, what are you giving it up for? One of the big surprising things was that I didn't realize how big of a tie it was until I realized there wasn't any tie there. And what I mean by that is, you know, my gran is still alive, and she's introduced me to people as being Neil, he's a lecturer. My mum has done the same thing. When I went to Scotland and visited my mum once, she introduced me to her friends as Neil, he's a lecturer, you know. And obviously, and I also do a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training. And every now and then at the local club, and every now and then we'll get a student coming through, you know, when you say to a student, oh, I'm a lecturer in the, you know, psychology department. Really? You're a lecturer? Wow. You know, and it didn't happen often, but just 6 or 7 times a year, you get that response. It becomes part of your identity. It becomes part of something you take pride in. And so when I told my family, you know, I called my gran, and I called my mum, and I called my dad. And when I told them, they did not care at all. They just want me to be happy. And being a lecturer to them does not mean anything. You know, it means something to me because I have these mentors that are lecturers, and they represent things to me, a certain way of living, a certain approach to life. And I thought that was, you know, held by all my family members. But my family members, they just want me to be happy. At the end of the day, the job to them just represents that I'm happy and have, you know, have enough money to be comfortable and whatever. And the second they said that, I realized how much value I had put or placed on those perceived how much I thought my family valued that, but actually didn't. So I don't know how long I stayed in the job because I thought I was kind of serving them and giving them that kind of ability to be proud of me, when actually they just want me to be happy. They don't care what I do.
And I'm sure there are many ways that they can be proud of you in many jobs and outside of work as well. It's interesting, isn't it, how much we put other people's perceptions or needs over our own, to the point where, like, if it was contributing to holding you back, that's your daily experience. And how long do they talk about it with their friends? Oh, for less than a minute, if that.
Never. So yeah, I did actually wonder the other day, how many hours and months did I spend in the job just based on the fact that I wanted to give a few family members a split second of that flash of pride to be
Yeah.
able to, as if, and it's not as if the people they were telling cared. It's not, when someone says to me, "Oh, my child's an engineer," I go, "Oh, good."
Yeah.
Great. And then I move on. Yeah, this has been a process of realizing what's actually important, and sometimes what feels important in like the low humming background. You're just humming along, thinking, "Well, my family are proud of this job, and I love this job." And then when you actually address those beliefs or those thoughts, you realize I don't seem to have the same love that my colleagues have, and if I don't have that love, should I be doing it? Or my family they're proud of me, but they don't seem to be proud of me because of the job. They seem to be proud of me because I'm a nice human being, because I'm able to provide, because I'm happy, that kind of thing. So I guess it's all about challenge. It's been a lot for me about challenging those kind of assumptions that I made. I realized I wasn't happy with this job. Why am I still in this job? What are the assumptions keeping me here? And one by one, they all kind of disintegrated until it was just like, it's the only reason I'm here, because it's comfortable. And I don't think comfort, I've never wanted to be that guy who lets, being comfortable be the main driver of decisions in my life.
Wow. Well, Neil, I think you are very inspirational. I love the way that you are questioning your thoughts, your feelings, your assumptions. I love the way that you're moving towards your calling. I love the way that you're thinking about, do I like this? Is it comfortable? Why do I like this? And I think most impressively, you have made a big decision, and you've not had to have like a life changing or, to hit rock bottom type situation in order to make it. It's been really well thought out, strategically planned. And I am really excited to see.
I'm definitely excited. I do feel a little bit like a canary. Like, as I say, I don't know any academic. Certainly no one in my life. I might have heard of people, but no one that I've known has left academia. And a few of my colleagues, one last thing that surprised me, by the way. I know you're just trying to wrap up then. Everyone that knows me, all my colleagues that know me, I've had some lovely emails from people saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're leaving. The department's going to miss you." But the people that know me, the handful, the 6 to 10 people, whatever, they have all said that made similar comments along the lines of, they're not surprised of all the people to be leaving. They're surprised that I'm leaving because I seem to be doing so well, etc. But of all the people, they said, but we also can see that you're someone that wants, I also wasn't surprised that you are leaving, and not to become another academic. The phrase that really, because that was a big reason. I was thinking, if no one else has done it, it must be ridiculous. If no one else has left academia, and I know quite a few smart people in academia, and they've chosen not to leave it, it must be because it's a dumb thing to do. But the two things, okay, and then I'm leaving. Number one, I think most academics don't have an idea about what exists outside of academia. I remember asking 3 or 4 years ago now, my PhD supervisor, when we were having dinner once, did he ever consider leaving? Because I was already thinking about it, it was clearly on my mind. And he said, well, I looked around, but what else am I going to do? And I think that most people in academia that I know, okay, I don't want to generalize too broadly, they only know academia, and that's brilliant and fine, and that's all they need to know. but there is a huge world out there, and it blows my mind that for a while I was thinking, no, this is all I probably can do. Like, that just goes to show how limited my thinking was. And then the second thing I wanted to say was the one phrase, I'm not saying I'm exceptional. I don't, everyone's the star of their own movie and everyone's important to themselves. And I kind of do have that belief about myself. Of course, I think most people do that, we are in some way special. And that's what I thought. I thought the phrase, if you want to be exceptional, you have to do exceptional things. So if you want to be extraordinary, do extraordinary things. Like, yes, it's risky to just leave academia. And I don't know anyone else who's left academia. But if you want to go on to do more than just what you could do in academia, you have to leave it. You have to do the extraordinary thing and leave it. So that phrase, if you want to be extraordinary, you have to do extraordinary things, is really driven. I think I made it up, but it's really driven me over the last couple of months. And my decision to leave my job.
I love it. That's a really good phrase. And I'm going to, really think about how I can apply that in my life as well.
Well, Alison, here's a challenge to you.
Oh, God.
How could you apply that idea? I think you're an extraordinary person, obviously. But if you think of yourself as a star of your own movie and an extraordinary person, like, what's an exceptional thing that you can do? Like, what's a behavior that you can adapt that you think, no one else does, but actually no one else does it because they're not as extraordinary as you?
Well, to be honest, I think starting this podcast is kind of quite extraordinary. Lots of people have podcasts and things, but certainly, for me, my experience among our circle, and I think I would like to get to a point where I have more time and freedom to do things like podcasting, like writing, like videos, etc., and kind of step away from my job. But I feel I need a bit more time to get to that place. So I'm not ready to kind of give up my day job and go all in and see if I can make it and, do things that I find really exciting and enjoyable. I kind of want to make the slow, steady transition.
Yeah. Now, just to clarify, I don't think an extraordinary thing has to be a dramatic, life-changing seismic shift. I think it can just be, I think you're exceptional in the extent that you do workouts every day. Like, if you were to say, I think, maybe I can only speak about people I know. I think in general, if you were to speak to the people we know and say, Alison does yoga every single morning, or Alison does a 15 to 20 minute workout every single morning before work, I think that would be quite exceptional. And I think that's an indicator. That's the kind of thing where I'm saying, well, if you want to be exceptional, if you want to have a good body or be healthy or whatever your goals are, you got to do exceptional things. And I think that, it can just be doing something consistently is quite exceptional. Most people aren't great at being consistent.
I think, that's true. That is a good point. It doesn't have to be crazy big. I guess then the thing for me, and I think this was my New Year's resolution, actually, which goes to show how I've not really stuck to it. But rather than have a resolution for this year, what I wanted to do was almost get better at reviewing, just that reviewing and reflecting and thinking, this is what I did today. This is what my goals are. How in line are the two? Is my behavior moving me towards my goal? And I did do that for a bit, and I always found it really helpful. So I think for me, my kind of route to exceptionality, or live in that, exceptional people do exceptional things. In order to do that, I have to do more reflecting, more writing, more planning, because it, like you say, it's like an ongoing process and a realization where you think things through, you question your assumptions, and come to a different perspective.
Yeah, it reminds me of the project management qualification Prince 2, where they talk about, how do you monitor whether or not what you're doing is working? At what point do you stop doing it? How will you know it's been successful? And I do see you applying that kind of thinking. Maybe you don't do it as stringently as you want to, or religiously as you want to, or set regimented as you want to, but I do see you are pretty good at doing that kind of thing. You did just mention New Year's resolutions, and it did just make me think one more thing about how big of a shift leaving my job is, and then I'm leaving. All right, then I'm going because I'm already late.
We could just talk for hours.
I know we could. I know. But yeah, when you just mentioned New Year's resolution, I was thinking several of my New Year's resolutions are job focused. You and I have kept I have at least a log of my New Year's resolutions. I really like the idea. I set goals at the start of the year. I check in halfway through the year, and then at the end of the year, we reflect back and then set them for the next year. I've done that for about 10 years now. I want to think maybe 8 years. And it just dawned on me when you were talking about your New Year's resolutions that several of mine have just melted away. That's how big of a kind of part of my identity, though, the job is, publishing a first author paper was one of them this year. And I managed to do that. But publishing a paper will now no longer be part of my identity. It will no longer be part of my goals. And it just goes to and it actually feels like a relief. It feels like rather than a loss, it feels like things that you thought mattered, things that meant everything to you because of a job. Actually, once you get that space and you can step it back from the job and because I'm leaving it, it's really nice to see, that's just a minor part of that job. It was never part of who I am, even though it felt like it was, even though I was setting it as a New Year's resolution and a goal that I wanted to work towards. So that's actually been a really another nice experience of this whole leaving the job.
So you can come back to you and maybe we can both set some New Year's resolutions together, and maybe we could do a podcast episode about it.
Maybe
in line with our goals to be sexy 40-year-olds.
Hey, that's a callback to the first podcast.
Call back to episode number 3. Thank you so much, Neil. I have really enjoyed hearing your journey with your personal challenge and now this massive transformation that's happening. I really am super excited for you, and I can't wait to have you back on the podcast and find out how it's all going.
Thanks for having me. It's been lovely. And yeah, like I say, I feel like this could go either way. Maybe the next podcast would be talking about how I'm now stacking shelves and begging in the street half the time. But I hope it's been useful to someone out there who might be in a similar situation. I'm not recommending they do something similar because there might be differences, but hopefully, someone out there might think, I'm going through that, or I can relate to that, and that's useful.
Amazing.
So thank you for having me.
Fantastic. What another great conversation with Neil. There's so many points that I want to pick up on and just kind of highlight. But one of the things that Neil said, particularly in response to those people who say, what I do doesn't matter, or it's the role of big organizations and governments to make environmental changes. Well, Neil says that if you can change your behavior in a way that doesn't involve you going without, then why wouldn't you do it? Any other excuse is just a cop-out. And I think really when it comes down to it, that is true. And there are many things that we can do, many changes we can make that are not painful and that are really helpful to the environment. It just takes a bit of extra knowledge sometimes, and maybe a bit of motivation in order for you to do it. I think, in fact, that there is like a role of knowledge. So you have to understand that, say, for example, if I do the recycling, then not all of it gets recycled and there's only limits to recycling, so that there is that knowledge gap. But the biggest thing for me to changing behavior is about getting someone else involved. Neil talks about that social accountability. And in fact, he said, the biggest impact that you've had, Alison, is through getting me involved. And I completely agree that if there are any behaviors that I want to make to do more of, then I have to get other people recruited and keep me accountable, because otherwise it's very easy to let yourself down. It's very easy to give yourself an excuse. It's very easy to be lazy. So there's something about getting people involved and trying to get them accountable without kind of campaigning in a way that's not welcome. Neil said he doesn't want to be like a vegan. He doesn't want to be a CrossFitter. So treading that fine line between social accountability and getting friends involved, and also not being a pain in the bum, potentially, and preaching. Another thing that I thought was interesting that Neil pointed out was this non-intuitiveness around ecological alternatives, and how, again, you have to take a bit more effort to and fill in that knowledge gap. So he gave an example, like how many straws is equivalent for one metal straw versus plastic straws. And because I'm a bit of a nerd, I did a bit of research and Googling, and apparently the energy used to produce a single metal straw is equivalent to the energy used to produce 104 plastic straws. That's based on energy. And then on carbon emissions, producing one metal straw is equivalent to producing 149 plastic straws. So obviously it's better if you use that metal straw all the time. Although, to be honest, I don't know why you need straws today in the world when you're drinking drinks anyway. Like, for me, a cup is sufficient. But anyway, even cocktails, even like frappuccinos and things, you can all just like have a bit of ice in the way. It's fine. I don't mind. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting, and it shouldn't stop you from doing something, or give you an excuse for not acting. But I guess it's best to act when you come from a place of information. The other thing that I just wanted to comment on was about this tension that Neil experienced between his calling and his comfort zone, and the effort that it takes to realize this, and to move out of the status quo, to turn around, the Titanic, and how much we can just go through our lives in autopilot, because there's nothing that bad happening. We're relatively happy, we enjoy ourselves, and to take a real long, hard look at your life, and to say that actually I have a philosophy around you only live once, and to really embody and live that philosophy is difficult. It is really difficult. And I know one of the reasons why we didn't cover it in the podcast, but Neil said that, he gave up his job without having something else to jump into, is because he said if he waited for that thing to jump into, or if he tried to line up that thing to jump into, he would just never do it. He needed that extra incentive. He needed that burning platform, in a way, to take action. Just coasting along safely was not enough for him. So yeah, really making me think about what are some of the behaviors that I do, some of the situations that I accept as comfortable, when I could think about what would give me more excitement, more pleasure. What does it really mean to embody the saying, memento mori, remember you will die? Food for thought indeed. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I would love it if you come on over to Facebook and say hello to me. Let me know what you thought of the episode. My page is TSL Untethered, This Sustainable Life Untethered. Please like and subscribe and leave me a review, all those things that you can do which help me better get noticed and get more listeners, and hopefully make more of an impact. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.